Hey friends, welcome to the 911Strong podcast with Kristen and Aram.
Hi.
We're back.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. But we're back with the ladies from the Blue Wife Life podcast.
Yes.
We had a very interesting...
Becky and Mary.
Yeah. Becky and Mary are two of the most down-to-earth police wives I've met through social media.
Me too.
And we had a very candid conversation, which I think you guys will enjoy. So stay tuned when we return to the 911Strong podcast.
Station to all units.
Prepare to copy.
You're listening to the 911Strong podcast.
Don't act like I never told you.
With Aram and Kristen, bringing you stimulating discussion.
No, I like the sound of that.
An entertaining conversation.
And now, here's Kristen and Aram.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 911Strong podcast. We've got the Blue Wife Life podcast team of Mary and Becky.
Yay.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
You guys
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, you guys have your setup kind of nice there. You guys aren't right next to each other. You guys have enough space to talk about each other without...
That's right. Are you telling us about you and Kristen? Is there something?
Sometimes,
Yeah, we had to take a break from each other.
He gets in my bubble and I don't
Yeah.
like it.
No, but we want to know. I mean, you guys have such a successful podcast, and you guys come out so organically and natural. But now that you guys are away from each other, we want to know deep dark secrets. Okay.
Okay. All right.
right,
We've
well-
got a few of those.
Okay. Well, for those who of our listeners who don't know who Mary and Becky are, they host the Blue Wife Life podcast. They've got a really interesting perspective because they're both wives of federal law enforcement. They're both from Texas. They're best friends. And then during our pre-show, we learned that they've known each other for quite a long time.
Yeah.
There's an interesting story between how the three of them met. Mary is a mother of 3 kids. She has 2 boys and finally got her little girl. And she's 1, I think, right?
She just turned 1. Yes.
Awesome. And Mary is a former dancer and cheerleader. And a former teacher also.
Yes, former teacher.
Yeah,
Former dancer and cheerleader from a long time ago. Not like
I'm sure you still have the moves, so we'll probably ask
Right?
her to demonstrate.
She was also homecoming queen. I'm just going to deep dark secret. I'm going to throw out.
You left that out. What?
Awesome. Okay, well,
Thank you, Becky.
Well, it's Becky's turn.
Good.
Well,
Right?
something interesting about Becky. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But Becky has 3 kids. She's got a girl sandwiched between 2 boys, boy, girl, boy. The interesting is her and her boys share their birthdays all in the same week.
That's crazy.
Isn't
That's
that
one
crazy?
busy week.
Yeah, it's an expensive
It's
week.
coming.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
Even more interesting, though,
Mm.
Becky met her husband on an airplane.
I know. I want to hear that story.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, why
did
don't
you
we
ask
jump
him
into
for
that?
the window seat?
Let's jump into that. How'd you meet on an airplane?
Okay, so I was a flight attendant.
Oh.
And is Mary laughing? I'm laughing because she did not want to say this. She didn't want to tell people she was a flight attendant. And I was like, I'm totally telling that. for
Nobody's
you.
twisting your arm.
I love it. Well, she threw out the
So-
homecoming queen,
Right.
so.
There you go.
Exactly. Here comes that bus. I'm right under it now. So I was a flight attendant, and my husband, after he got out of the military, he was an air marshal. And so we worked one flight ever together. We had a mutual friend, and he grew up with her, and I had just moved to the area we were living in at the time. And she had said to him, "Hey, I have a friend that just moved out there. You should show her around." Well, I didn't realize that she sent a picture of me to him. And so he recognized me on a flight. We were somewhere like Chicago or something. And I was like, I don't know anybody in Chicago. And the flight attendant was like, yeah, this guy says he knows you. And I was like, no, I don't know anybody.
Creeper.
And yeah, exactly. I was like,
Right.
no. And then it ended up, I was like, oh, I bet it's that guy. And I went up to the front, and he likes to say I walked up in granny shoes, and like, because that's what's comfortable on working long flights. And then the next time I walked back up, I had on my high heels. So I had to have like my A game ready. But
That's
Becky is beautiful. And so when you see her in a photo, she's got this long blonde hair and this huge smile. And so she's very recognizable, right? So I know Scott probably thought she was beautiful in the photo, and then it's hard to miss her on a flight, you know.
See, I think that's totally sweet because, I mean, you hear girlfriends say that, but somehow this sounds so genuine as opposed to some of the girls, oh, you're so pretty. But yeah, this sounds really genuine. You guys really have an admiration and love for each other, which is why.
Yeah, well, she really is beautiful. She looks like Barbie. You can just go to our Instagram and see that. I have seen her with her Kool-Aid dyed hair in the 7th grade though, and I have seen her in her awkward middle school years. So
both of you are beautiful ladies, and I think that's why your page, your Instagram page, Blue Wife Life Podcast, is so effective. It's good photos. You go to your page and everything looks really laid out really well. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about how you guys decided you guys were going to start a podcast and why the theme is what it is?
Yeah. So we decided to start this podcast. There's a funny story behind that kind of too. Becky can share in a second, but Becky lived in a town, in a border town with a ton of law enforcement wives, all federal, not the same agency, but they had this awesome group that was super supportive of each other, understood each other. They were best friends and still are. They have a group of girlfriends that are still best friends. And I lived in another town where I had amazing friends as well, but zero law enforcement friends. And so I had high anxiety at the beginning when Stephen got on with his job. And I would have to call Becky and Scott sometimes in the middle of the night and be like, he's not answering his phone, like talk me down, you know, like just all the I think a lot of wives go through that kind of paranoid feeling. My sister is actually married to a police officer here in Texas, and she doesn't deal with that though. It's interesting. She's a NICU nurse and has a child with special needs, so she kind of has a high stress life. But like she never would get anxiety, but I always would. So I would call Becky and like have to talk through that. And it just was, I didn't feel alone in life at all. I had a really great support system of family and friends, but I felt alone in the law enforcement wife life, if that makes sense to you guys. Yeah. So Becky was my go-to for that. And, we both love listening to podcasts, and sometimes it's the only like interaction I get during the day when Becky can't talk on the phone or my sisters or my mom. But I find like such a source of encouragement from listening to other women. And so that's kind of like where I was coming from with it. Becky kind of has a different like perspective of where she came from it, but it was just to help ladies not feel so alone.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you think that's I mean, I'm not a law enforcement wife, but and sometimes men we're oblivious to what emotions are going on. Yeah. Even though our wives tell us to our face what's going on, we're dumb, right? Do you think that's a common theme though amongst law enforcement wives? Is there? Because I feel like Liz puts on this facade, my wife, where she doesn't worry about when I go to work. Yeah. But in the back of my mind, I'm conscious of the fact that she might worry if I'm a little bit late, so I'll update her. Yeah. Is that something that we should be doing as husbands, or leave it alone, not making a reminder?
No, I mean, obviously we want to know that you guys are okay. And if you're not answering the phone, I mean, we kind of always wonder why. Well, you're at work, what's going on that you're not answering the phone? And granted, like maybe like 10, 20 minutes, maybe even an hour, and we're kind of like, he's probably busy on a call. But if like a couple hours go by, then, you know, the anxiety and the worry comes in. And it's nice to have other ladies that are wives that can relate to us too. And like you said, talk you kind of off the ledge and calm it down a little bit. I mean, fortunately, I would say we have a decent amount of police wives in our department that we can reach out to too and tell them like, oh, they're busy on this and they're busy on that and whatever. I mean, I have that comfort. I can call dispatch and know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. Yeah. So they can be in trouble if they're not calling back right away. But
there's a book called Men Are Like Waffles and Women Are Like Spaghetti. And it has to do with the fact that men think in boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And women, our brain, everything is connected. So if there's even like an inkling of worry, we can go from one place to another where like men are like, whoa, how'd the conversation go there? Like I was in this waffle box over here.
Right.
And so I think that's where the anxiety can go nuts. And like, I think to answer your question, Aram, it does help just communication, and however your wife husband team communicates is what it's all about.
I like that. I like that analogy. And guys, we need pictures to make things make sense. So that's a perfect analogy. I think that's going to be, we're definitely going to have to highlight that and make that a clip on our preview.
Yes, I love that.
So, based on the theme of your podcast, I'm sure you guys get a lot of messages from wives. Do you ever get messages from husbands like that have questions like I just did?
Mary, do we? I don't think we do.
No, I don't
Interesting.
think.
I have a feeling though after today. So like my personal page, the audience is about 75% men.
Mm-hmm.
I think once they know about this podcast, I think your male audience is going to increase quite a bit.
We need all the help they can get.
Yeah, we often make jokes that like has a man ever listened to our podcast? I'm not so sure, but we would love to answer any questions that men have. I don't know that we have the answers, but.
Well, I think a lot of the questions that are going to come from men are going to be from your perspective. So they're probably going to ask questions that you guys have answers to. So that, and the other thing that I'm always curious about, and maybe it's because of the relationship you have with my wife, we always joke that you guys are friends because you guys can get along. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting dynamic. Maybe it's an LA thing, but we find that cop wives either really like each other or they really don't like each other. Do you guys run into the same dynamic? Is it hard? I mean, you guys mentioned you had that you guys had an incredible support group that Becky did, but Mary, you didn't, where you were. Mm-hmm. Is that localized? Is that compartmentalized? Is that just a generality?
I think that isn't. I don't know. No, I haven't noticed that. I mean, there's girls that are like, I do not like her. Yeah. But on the whole, I don't think it's, I think people want to support each other and want to get it no matter the agency, state, local, federal. And I think like when you're outside of that world, like my mom, for example, I really think she thought that Scott was having an affair at one point because she didn't understand why he had a separate phone and why he was leaving at 11 o'clock at night or why he was gone for a couple of days. Whereas my girlfriends in this field are like, oh, yeah. Come over, have dinner at my house. Like bring the whole crew. Like bring you awesome. And your wild children,
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, the two-phone thing seems to bring it problems.
Yeah, the two-phone thing with us is a little different because they don't have to go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a little different. Like, yeah, you could just, do, what is it, star 67 or star 87 and block your number and call victims if you need to. But that's just me.
I think go ahead, Mary.
I was just going to say your question about women. One of my friends posted on Instagram the other day, it was like National Women's Day or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I didn't even know that was a thing, but she posted girls compete, women empower. And I feel like just with women in general, there's still that, you think you grow out of it before middle school, but I feel like there's still that like competition, comparison game. And so I don't know if it's like law enforcement wives or what you were referring to LA police wives specifically, or just women in general. Like some women are still catty, and
no.
Yeah.
And I wonder, do you think that has to do with like LA? Like in Texas, do you know there's more boob jobs in Texas than there are in LA? But how I think of LA is like beautiful to the nines all the time.
No? Maybe like downtown LA.
Yeah.
It's more down there.
When you go into
like the outskirts of LA County, then it's not.
If you go to a Laker game, for instance, the closer to the floor you are, the more of that you'll see.
The more typical Hollywood LA you'll see.
And then the cheaper the seats,
the nosebleed section.
The more real the people are.
More honest.
That's funny.
I think we live in the greater LA area. We're not right in the city because we'd go nuts if we did. Yeah. But I think we tend to live in areas where people are more like us.
Yeah.
Similar incomes, similar backgrounds. And I think when you get to downtown, you're running into a lot of what people typically believe LA to be like.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I guess there is that generalization, and there's always going to be catty women that maybe they just haven't found themselves yet, and maybe it's just their insecurities and they just want to like try to blend or fit in and show how good or well they're doing in comparison to other people. And
but we do get
it happens.
There is a relationship between Texas and LA. It's a lot of our retirees end up moving out to Texas.
Right? Everything's better in Texas, isn't it?
Well, I like it there.
I
went once and it was nice.
I do love California. It's beautiful there.
It is.
It is. And I think we get a bad rap. I mean,
we do.
Our politics suck.
Yes.
But for the most part, we live very comfortably. As law enforcement officers across the country, the general rule is people from California don't talk about our income and benefits because it's really not fair in some parts of the country. Speaking of New Orleans, a couple of years ago, I met a sergeant from New Orleans, and that's the same rank I am, except when we were done with church, he said he had to go to his job at the grocery store. So his grocery store job paid the benefits or paid the income, or he did his police job for the benefits because he made roughly half of what I made. And I know cost of living is different, but it's not that different.
Yeah.
I mean, your teenagers are expensive wherever you go.
Yeah.
And so we really don't talk about income when we go, talk to cops from other places, but I don't know where I was going with that. But there is a despair, but I think your money goes a lot further out of California, which is the reason why people leave here and retire out of state. They take the California retirement and go to beautiful places like Texas.
We do. I mean, we have a lot of like national parks and, a lot of our beaches, maybe not downtown LA beaches, but a lot of our beaches are really nice, really clean. We have a lot of scenic areas. Like there's a lot to do in California.
Yeah,
it is.
Absolutely.
It's really nice. We just get overshadowed by like the Hollywood and the politic crap.
Yeah. A lot of people, like I live up here in the desert and it's totally opposite. You don't see sky rises. As a matter of fact, the city I live in, we have a rule that you can't have any structure above 3 stories. So so it's beautiful. It's where Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, the old Hollywood Cowboys, homes. And if you look in my backyard, you can see the roof of Roy Rogers and Dale Evans' house. So we do have that Western old-fashioned feel.
He's more the deserty area of California.
Yeah,
it's nice.
But when you guys come out to visit, you guys can be guests of ours, and we'll show you all the plastic people.
That'd be great.
Actually, I've never taken one of those tour buses in LA.
Yeah, we should do that.
I've never done that. That'd be kind of funny.
People from Southern California going on LA tours.
Y'all should do a podcast from taking one of those tour buses.
That's a great idea.
I wouldn't be able to hide my reactions.
Can you imagine the stuff we'd see?
That's the hilarious part.
There's some interesting stuff just random stuff. I mean, you find like people wearing the most strangest things or costumes and that kind of stuff. And I was going into LA to do a recording and it was like, I think 4 p.m, bright and sunny. And these 2 guys literally pulled over in the traffic of LA. So we're barely going anywhere. Get out of their car and start tagging all over the walls.
Oh gosh.
Like, what the heck? And I thought, generally speaking, like taggers are like kids or early 20s. These fools are like in their 40s freaking tagging on the wall.
Well, those are artists. They're urban artists.
It didn't look very artistic to me. It
Also,
like a 5-year-old
aren't you supposed to be doing that in secret? Like,
right.
Isn't that supposed to be happening at night?
That's what I thought.
Well,
apparently they're bringing it out to the daytime.
A lot of the things that might be felonies in Texas have been reduced down here in California. So like possession of methamphetamine.
I've been hearing, yes.
A misdemeanor now.
Well, they're starting to adopt the new bail reform that New York has, and they're starting to do that crap over here now too. So it's going to get even worse in California.
Yeah, so it is frustrating when we have training classes. You were just in a training class over in Quantico.
I was.
With multiple agencies. So I'm sure you heard a little bit of it, but some of our officers that go out of state for training classes, they get it too. And when I first started, possession of a needle was a felony. We can take people to jail for that, but now it's just a ticket. So it's pretty bad.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it is kind of like, what do you do? How do you, as an individual, how do you make those changes? And sometimes I think maybe it's naive, but maybe your podcast is a way of normalizing your belief system.
I agree with that. I think the whole point of us starting was to humanize the police wife, the dispatcher, police officer, and give our perspective, which is, I think, similar to what you guys are doing. I think there's not enough information about what police wives go through, which I think is the reason why your podcast is so unique. Mm-hmm. Is anybody else doing what you guys are doing?
Mary, you want to take it?
That you know of?
That's code for we're like, we both have no idea. I think there's a few other podcasts that are similar. I know there's a lot of military wife podcasts. The Waiting Warrior is one. I'm trying to think of other ones.
There's some fire wife, so some first responder in general.
But no, we did not see any specific law enforcement wife.
Okay. Yeah. When you guys started, when did you guys know that this was going to be a success? Like you knew you were going to record second, third, fourth episodes.
I know. We're like,
you guys are in your second season.
I think you guys are doing third season.
Third season. Okay.
Yeah. Well, because Kristen was our launch for our third season. So we just launched third yesterday, actually.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I forgot. What did you just ask? Like, wait.
Yeah, when did you, when we first started, we had no idea if we were going to even record past a second or third episode. When did you guys know that you guys had a thing that it was going to go into your third season?
Like that it was good to keep going.
We keep coming up with more and more ideas. Like we are always, and because we talk almost every day, it's like, oh, this would be a good topic or this would be a great topic. And part of the reason we started was she's my ex sister-in-law, and this isn't because of this coming situation that she's my ex sister-in-law, but she had posted something on Facebook about how racist police officers were, and we've all heard that. And I was real mad because it wasn't a stranger saying it. It was somebody I knew, and I felt like, if you feel like this, don't you feel like you have somebody you could specifically talk to, aka my husband, if you have grievances to say? And so I was real fired up, and I did try to call her. She didn't answer, and so I wrote back on her Facebook post, and that was not the correct way to handle it, for sure. And Mary and I later, Mary's the one that said, we should start a podcast. And it kind of felt like, there's some issues that don't get voiced, and let's put a voice to that and not do it in a social media blaming sort of way, but rather an encouraging and uplifting and way. Because while they weren't talking about me, you're talking about my family. And even while my husband is federal, it doesn't matter to me who your husband is with. If you're in the law enforcement family, we are a family, and Amen. So we want to support each other.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. Facebook's frustrating. I found myself having to spend less time on Facebook, especially as we get closer to election time. It's
for sure.
What is it? It's like silently unfollow somebody where you're not really unfollowing it, but you can't see their stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of that.
Yeah. I find that Facebook's good for connecting with old friends from school and stuff like that. Yeah. But do you guys have your page on multiple platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter? Do you find
we don't have Twitter. We have Instagram and Facebook. I don't know if not being on Twitter is a good thing or a bad thing.
I think it's a double-edged sword.
I don't use Twitter.
What kind of social media mistakes? If someone like yourselves want to start a podcast and they're stay-at-home wives and they find that they have time to do a podcast, what kind of hurdles did you guys go through that you meet people with advice that they can avoid?
Oh goodness. Where do we even start? Okay, so we have recently decided with social media, we're still going to be active in social media, but for the longest time we were analyzing every little like caption and hashtag and anything we said, and we were trying to be on stories a lot. And now we're just kind of in our third season, like Becky and I have kind of made a promise to each other just to be authentic to ourselves. And if we want to post, if we want to share our opinion, you know, because I feel like the mistake we made, that's not really answering your question, but the mistake we made was trying to be too polished or too Instagram perfect or too, you know, like put together. And that's just not who we are. I mean, like if I like reverse this phone, y'all would see my kitchen's a disaster right now. And we also, the time to do a podcast is funny too, because we're constantly carving out little tiny pieces of time because we don't really have the time. We're doing things at night. We're hiring a sitter, you know, for interviews. That's why we had to take a 4-month break, because we really don't have the time.
Yeah, life happens.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question. I just think if someone wants to start a podcast or Instagram or blog or whatever it is, just be authentic to who you are, because people can see through the crap.
Yeah. No, I agree. Right before you came on, we were talking about how what we appreciate about your podcast and your social media is the fact that you come off authentic. And I think that's probably the biggest contributor to your success is you're not overly polished. And I don't mean to say that your page isn't good, but you're not seeking that perfection. You put your flaws out there and you talk about your flaws. Yeah. I think you mentioned you purposely included one of your husbands walking in the background in his underwear on one of your podcasts. And I think that's great.
So our listeners will have to go to their podcast to hear it. Yes. That was a good break, I guess.
Oh man.
So if our listeners wanted to follow you guys, where can they listen to your podcast and find you on social media?
On Instagram, we are under Blue Wife Life Podcast, and the same on Facebook.
Okay, awesome. I'll have to put that link in the show notes at the bottom. And what can we expect in your new season? I know Kristen was your guest for your first episode of season 3. What can we expect for the rest of the season?
We have 2 more interviews done. So I think a lot of people listening may know Ammo and Grace.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cody. Yeah. She will be next. We've got some health and wellness. We want to do more with military wives, more with women officers. We want to do a financial one. I think that sounds boring, but I think it's needed. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got to find somebody that can make that exciting.
Yeah. If someone's listening that can talk about finances.
I'll have to think of it. I'll have to think of someone.
Dave Ramsey, are you listening?
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. He lives in California, right?
I think so.
I don't know if he does.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
We also like to, if someone were to check out our page and see some of our interviews are totally random and they're like, wait, this has nothing to do with law enforcement. We like to just interview anyone that we feel like can encourage wives. So we always say like our life isn't in this box of, you know, our life doesn't revolve around our husband. You know, we're not sitting at home like, you know, waiting like 50s wives, waiting for him to come home and like everything revolves around him and his job. We don't want it to come across like that. We want it.
We lost Mary.
Oh,
Mary disappeared.
Go. She may have gotten a phone call. I disappeared earlier when a phone call came through.
Oh, okay. Probably someone that couldn't believe she's on with us.
Right. I know.
We get
Let me tell you something funny. In the interim, I said, speaking of that, I called my husband and I said, hey, I'm a little bit nervous. This thing is going to be live. And he was like, don't worry, you'll be great. And I was like, is that your pep talk? Like, we're done? That was it? And he's like, it's okay. I said, what if I say something dumb? And he's like, well, that's what makes you so great. And I was like, did I say dumb things? Like,
there's his waffle talking, right?
Oh, gosh.
Right. I'm like, okay, let me let you go. Let me let you go.
Inspirational speaker is not his strong point.
Luckily we ran into some technical difficulties, so we couldn't go live. But,
Mary disappeared.
But we record these things live and we put it out. We don't edit anything out. And I think that brings the appeal to this. So it looks like we lost Becky for good. I mean, Mary for good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we're at the end of it, but hopefully she'll pop back on.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to ask questions, do they DM you guys? Do you guys have an email?
Yeah, we do have an email. It's bluewifelifeusa@gmail.
Mm-hmm.
And they can always direct message us. Oh, look, here she comes. Yeah, but they can reach out to us. And that's honestly one of our favorite things is, and Kristen and I and Mary, we all talked about this. We love connecting with people. And I think that is the best thing about this whole world.
I think we have to change that up.
I'm sorry, y'all.
That's okay. I'm trying to get
Mary, while you were gone, Becky spilled the beans. Oh my gosh, so much information.
Stop.
She did. We know you on a whole different level.
Like my phone cut out. I was like, I'm so sorry.
It's real life. It happens.
There's the Blue Wife Life isn't perfect. The authentic that you were talking about.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. So it keeps it real. I think you two are probably some of the most genuine people we've ever had on here, and totally enjoyed having you guys on. Becky gave us the email. She was giving us the email address to where people can email. That was bluewifelifeusa@gmail.com. They can also DM you guys on your page. We might have someone out there that wants to be a guest.
You never know, that hit any of those topics you guys talked about. And then your podcast, it's on iTunes, Spotify, anything else that people might have? Google Play.
Yes, Google Play. I was going to say.
I think they're distributed through the same.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
So they should be on.
See,
everything.
I don't do the technical stuff. I love that.
So I googled the Blue Wife Life.
Oh, okay.
And immediately a link to all the podcasts came out.
Cool.
So
we'll link that on.
You know what's funny is that like things we're noticing, and maybe y'all notice the same thing. Like the strengths and weaknesses that you come to the table with, you really end up fitting well together. Like Mary has never been in sales, but that girl could sell ice to an Eskimo. And like, she is very good at connecting people. And I always knew that. But like, if she asked somebody to come on the show, they're like, yeah, I was waiting for you to ask me. I hope you'll have the same dynamic.
Oh my gosh. Well, maybe I'll use Mary as our recruiter then.
I'd be happy to recruit for y'all. It'd be fun.
Yeah. We're looking for guests as well. Our first half, we didn't break our thing up into seasons, but I think we did a lot of, there was a learning curve, as I'd imagine you guys went through. And we found that we probably flow a lot better when we have someone else to talk with instead of just ourselves. Because we can
rant a lot too, but
we get into trouble.
But it's nice to change it up and have somebody else to talk to, because talking to Aram sometimes gets boring for me.
This is the first time
I have to give him a hard time.
I'd say this is the first time in about 3 years maybe that we haven't worked on the same shift.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen Kristen in, it feels like months.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
He decided to go to the dark side.
I did. I went to nights.
Yeah, he went to graveyard.
Oh my gosh, how's that going?
It's horrible.
He's a bear.
Yeah, I sleep. I come home. Our kids are homeschooled, so there's no quiet place in the house, which is the reason why I go to the trailer in the side of our house to sleep in during the day. So that's been quite an adjustment. But nights are fun. We'll discuss that.
Bless your wife.
That's I was going to say, your wife is a saint for homeschooling. You have 4 kids, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know how she does it, but
she's amazing.
I think that's all she knows. She was homeschooled, so I think for her it was just a natural thing. For me, it was really different. I tried. I'm a professor. I teach at a Baptist university out here, and I can teach adults all day long. but when it comes to elementary age kids, I can't do it.
Well, not just elementary, but your own kids.
Why
aren't you understanding this?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Like, that's why I tell him, like, you have so much of a harder job than I do. Like, yeah, she's amazing for doing that. I could not. I'll send my kids to your house and she can teach them, but I won't do that to mine either.
Yeah. I was a elementary school teacher for 8 years and I could never homeschool my own children. Like, I'm trained in this and there's no way I could do it. So I applaud any mom or dad that chooses to homeschool.
Yeah, same here. I'm in the same boat as you. I couldn't do it. I leave it up to Liz because one of the kids ends up in tears when I start teaching. So yeah, it's not a good thing. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. I want to thank Mary and Becky from the Blue Wife Life podcast. You guys were absolute fun. This felt more like a conversation.
I love talking to them. Yeah. They're so easygoing.
Can we have you guys back on sometime?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, awesome.
Of course.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, ladies. And our followers can follow them. We'll put the links on the show notes. And good luck on season 3.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you, guys. We enjoyed it.
All right. Take care, ladies.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the 911 Strong podcast with Aram and Kristen. You can subscribe to the 911 Strong podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and many other fine podcast platforms. You can also see the in-studio recording on YouTube. Just search 911 Strong. We value your opinion. Please leave us a review, and we would really appreciate a 5-star rating. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell your friends about us.